things I asked myself while I was reading this book is, we're talking 19th century. To build these airships, I can't even begin to imagine the type of resources it would take to put together one of these things, especially back in those days. How was NIMSA financing these projects and these expeditions? Was this group made up of very wealthy members of the private sector? Did they have some government backing them, or how did they operate?
Well, these are the kind of guys, and this is the kind of organization that lifted up and backed government. They were true breakaway societies, okay? They were independent as far as their resources and means were concerned. Now, they were also, men who were the industrialists of the day, and they pooled their own resources. It wouldn't have been as, even when we adjust for inflation as they do, when you look at a historical expenditure and you say, well, adjusting for inflation in 2025 dollars, that would be, oh my gosh. Well, even when you do that, things were not quite as inflated and as expensive as they are today. Okay, because these were, remember, these airships, either at the 1850s or their 1890s descendants, okay? This was still 19th century technology, 19th century materials to work with, okay? You couldn't take an 1890s airship and do what a modern Airbus does, or a 747. No, I mean, they just were more fragile than a modern jetliner, that kind of thing. That's why when I see the 1890s airship mystery, people want to explain that in terms of, it was UFOs like we see today. I just, I slap my forehead and just shake my head and go, oh my God, guys, stop it. Stop it with the flying saucer stuff. Tell me you haven't taken an honest, close look at the history without saying you haven't taken an honest, close look at the history. It's a denial.
Right.
I have a chart, if you recall, in my book, Origin. I call it the Bosley Chart, right? And in that chart, I show a Ford Model T automobile. Then I show a 1958 Buick. Then I show, I think, a 1985 Porsche. Now, here's what the chart is. The Arrow, the flying machine or contraption of the 1850s, Sonora Aero Club, that Delshaw writes about, that's your Model T, okay? Then the airships of the 1890s, 40 years later, that's like your 58 Buick compared to the Model T, okay? Then your modern, popular, I chose image of the sport model flying saucer that's famously connected to Area 51. I say, now that's your 1985 Porsche, and you see how that, what the 58 Buick was to the Model T, okay?
Right.
The 1890s airship was to the 1850s Arrow, all right? And what the 85 Porsche was to the Buick and the Model T, the sport model popular notion of a flying saucer was to the 1890s and 1850s airships. And the chart lays it out, and I think that's an easy way for people to understand what I'm talking about. So you see a progression of the technology. Now, yes, there was a huge leap between the 1890s airships and whatever the heck has been going on with what we call flying saucers, because anti-gravity technology research was open source until 1958, and something real mysterious happened because a lid was clamped down on that and has been ever since, really. So there must have been a huge leap forward in the late 50s, of this line of development.